step back in time to the turn of the 20th century. Meet Mollie Carpenter, a woman whose extraordinary intellect and indomitable spirit shaped the social and business landscape of Placerville. A force of nature, Mollie was a spirited figure who celebrated her community through her newspaper and her art.
My name is Mollie Carpenter, and I was the editor and publisher of the Mountain Democrat newspaper from 1902 to 1922. That was at a time when maybe I was one of a handful of female journalists across the country. And I'm here today to tell you my story. My mother and father met and were married in a small village just north of here called Georgetown. And it was there in 1863 in a quaint little cottage that I was born. I was named Mary after my mother. It came to me known as Mollie, a nickname. My father, Gideon J. Carpenter, who preferred to be known as GJ, came to California in 1850 from Pennsylvania. He relished telling us stories of our ancestors who had arrived at the Massachusetts Bay Colonies in 1636. Now, interestingly enough, my mother's family, the Thayers, arrived at the same colonies 2 years later. So I always believed my parents were meant to be together. After panning for gold about 5 or so years, my father moved us to Placerville as he was making a name for himself in politics. He rose to be the Speaker of the California State Assembly and Clerk of the Supreme Court. Because of this, we got to take many trips to Sacramento and to San Francisco. And it was one of those trips to San Francisco that I will never forget. Let's see if this date resonates with you. April of 1906. I was jostled out of my bed in the early morning hours by a violent earthquake. And as I sat on the edge of my trunk wondering if I was going to survive the day, my journalistic instincts kicked in, and I decided to stick around and write stories about what I saw. Now, I may be very well known for my journalistic talent and endeavors, but my true passion is music. I love to sing. In fact, at the age of 9, I played the old wooden organ up at the Methodist Episcopal Church on Upper Main. Are any of you members of that church? At the age of 12, I found myself singing in public. Well, I was called out of my classroom on several occasions to sing at funerals because my lovely soprano voice comforted the bereaved and the sorrowful, and I lent my voice throughout my life. In my early 20s, I decided to go east to the land of my ancestors, and I attended Wellesley College. And then I went on to the Boston Conservancy of Music. Now, I could have become a famous musical person in Boston. I could have stayed and developed my musical talent, but I really missed my family and I missed my friends, and how can you not miss these beautiful El Dorado foothills? So I came back to Placerville. Here I started teaching piano at what was the Conklin Academy. It's now the Ivy House parking lot. And it's behind Upper Main and Cedar Ravine. Father was responsible for getting me involved in journalism, my interest. He had been the publisher of the Mountain Democrat since 1894. And my very close friend and companion, Albina Ingram, was his business manager. By's expertise and experience with the paper proved to be invaluable to me when I took over the newspaper in 1902. We lived over on Bedford Street, not too far from here, and we could actually walk to work on good weather days. My office, as a matter of fact, is what you now know as Placerville Hardware Store. And my name may still be up over the top of the door, so be sure and stop by and check that out. Byne started with the newspaper as a typesetter, and she devoted 41 years of her life to that paper, longer than any other publisher, even my father and I. We became co-publishers in 1910, and we remained in that relationship until 1921, when she died suddenly of a stroke. She was my very best friend, and I miss her terribly. In those days, the newspaper was quite different. The Democrat was published weekly, and it consisted of 8 pages. 4 pages was local content, local news, things that were happening in the area. And 4 pages were shipped to us from San Francisco, patented and ready to print. We called it canned copy. Now, did you know, in my time, if you were going through a divorce, your whole story would have appeared in the newspaper. Nowadays, you practically have to commit a crime to get into the paper. Let's not do that, though, shall we? Being editor of the paper also afforded me many privileges. One such privilege came in September 1912 when I was invited to hear the great orator and politician William Jennings Bryan speak. If that name doesn't sound familiar, he went on to claim fame and be tragically ashamed because of his bashing the teaching of evolution in schools. Well, nobody's perfect. Now, I may not look like it, but I am really quite the social butterfly. Boy, do I love a party. I can go to a party. I have parties. I love especially parties where I can dress up in costume. Imagine that. My favorite costume was the Gypsy Countess singing princess, or I'd be ready to go to a Victorian ball. I gave a party once where I requested all of my attendees to come as their favorite song. We had such a great time trying to guess what song they were. My tenure as publisher came to an end in 1922. I died in a hospital in Oakland where I had been going for kidney failure treatment. From what I understand, my funeral was the largest funeral in this entire Placerville area. And while I claim to be a social butterfly, I am very humble when I say that my Mountain Democrat gave me a beautiful eulogy. She was blessed with an extraordinary intellect. Mollie Carpenter rests in the hills that have so often echoed with the sound of her voice. The echoes of her ideals and her goodness will ring on down the coming years and leave its indelible mark on our political, business, and social life. My name is Mollie Carpenter, and my family resides right over here. Come and visit us. We get a little bored. Thank you.